So the fifth Ashes Test, despite having been hit by rain, continues to be a pretty good match, thriller of a match really so far, and very evenly poised come the end of day two. Obviously, at the end of day one, Australia were in a situation whereby they were at England rather were 211 for one. You had Brook and Root who were unbeaten in a partnership, and both looked set for big hundreds. Obviously, whilst Root got his, Brook ended up missing out, was out for 84, whereas Root, of course, converted, got a nice 160 before being cotton bowled by Michael Naser. But the key thing is that whilst England obviously towards the latter parts in their innings ended up losing wickets fairly quickly, but what the advantage was really for them is that 384 still seemed like a decent first innings total. But so far Australia have shown no signs whatsoever of backing down or actually wanting to give in this to this test very easily, because again, whilst England were 384 for 10 in less than 100 overs, 97.3 to be more precise, Australia fought back nicely, 166 for 2 with 34.1 overs played before a quick burst of rain ended up forcing a slightly early stumps, because the over would have been completed, but obviously then that didn't happen. And the key record in chief for Australia once again is that man Travis Head, batting on 91 not out of 87 deliveries, 15 fours, no sixes, but very, very attacking, enterprising cricket from Head on a surface that, truth be told, did seem to lend itself to some good batting. He was lacking a little bit of support at the other end though, because again, Jake Weatherall ended up getting a decent start, couldn't convert it, just 21. Labuschagne batted well, but just again 48 of 68, missing out on even a half century, never mind coming close to a century. And it's Naser who was sent out and who ended up getting injured, copping a little bit of a blow to the hand. And after that, a rain shower came about and, well, really caused the day's play to come to a close. But so far, as I said, test match very evenly poised. I don't think you can pick a favorite right now. If Australia can bat on from this, if Head gets a big 100, thereafter you've got, of course, Smith Khwaja as well, who can come and contribute some runs. Australia could very well be in a situation whereby they take a lead. But of course, one cluster collapse, which has tended to happen to both teams during this particular series, is just we tend to focus more on England because they've been culpable of doing it far more often. One quick collapse though, and it could very well be a case that it's advantage England once again. But again, 384 doesn't seem like that big of a total right now, considering that Australia are already at 166. So they trail only by 218 runs and they have 8 wickets. So I would say that it's fairly evenly poised. But if I'm in the Australian dressing room, I'm slightly happier knowing I've still got some good batting. There's Smith to come, Khwaja to come, Alex Carey, there's a Cam Green, all these guys who can come and pitch in with the bat. They can come in and actually do well. So if it really comes down to it, even if they lose a couple of wickets early on, there's plenty of batting for them on day three. The only major obstacle, one is, of course, as I said, if a potential cluster collapse takes place, and the second is how good or bad the weather remains, because again, so far we've seen 2 days have been impacted by rain, and if you're wondering what the weather forecast is, it's not good for the remainder of the days either. In fact, even prior to the test match, when I was checking the weather forecast, it had said very clearly that there will in fact be rain predicted on all of the days of this test match. So you're in for a truncated affair that might very well work out in one team's favor to ensure that a result pretty much comes, because again, especially England, we know, tend to play a little lottery-ish kind of cricket, their baseball style. So if it's a lottery sort of a situation, you'd say maybe it could work in their advantage like it did at Melbourne as well. But I wouldn't count out this Australian team either. They'd be very keen to ensure that the test series ends 4-1. They couldn't get 5-0, so you'll do the next best and try and get 4-1. So right now I'd say evenly poised, but with a slight advantage, very, very slight advantage towards the Australians. I'd say it's about 52-48 in favor of Australia. Hope not lost for England, definitely not. They get a few early wickets and you never really know what can happen. But right now, Australia do have a lot of batting and they trail only by 218 runs. So if I'm Australia, I try and get about 100, 150 run lead and very confident then over my chances of getting a positive result in their favor. So that is how the match has played about. Again, as I said, there's plenty of action still to go in terms of this particular match. You can very easily make a case that it could go all 5 days considering there is rain, or that it could very well even wash out because some of the days the rain is predicted. It's a little on the heavier side. So really not much to be done about this particular factor. We knew that rain was going to be an issue, and it has proved to be that way so far. Both days have seen some kind of impact of rain, wherein you had to lose a few overs or call it quits a little earlier than you would have wanted to. Of course, if I'm England, there are positives to look at it as well. Joe Root gets a second ton, and that ton is also very, very important when you're looking at Joe Root's overall record. He's now equal Ricky Ponting in terms of his knocks of hundreds, and now is behind only, of course, certain others. Now with Ponting there as well, again with Root, we always look at how is it that he could perform in Australia? Could he do well? Because his record in Australia has been atrocious. We know that much. He never came close to 100. In fact, his reputation for someone who couldn't convert his starts into big scores or his 50s into hundreds came about largely due to his exploits down under. But now 2 test match tons on the trot for him over there. The other positive you can say for England is that Brook once again was up in the runs, although couldn't get a big 100, but up there in the runs. Of course, Jamie Smith had a good quick fire 47, but if I'm England, I would be disappointed at the fact that they couldn't get, instead of 384, if they had gotten even say 420, 430, 450, and you could have gotten that. There was enough batting. Lest we forget, at one point they were 320, they were to 323 for 6 once Jamie Smith was dismissed, and they still had batting thereafter. You had a Jacks, a Cars, and Root was along with them as well. So there was enough batting there that they could, from 323 for 6, actually build towards 420, 30, 40, 50, anything you got. Unfortunately, they didn't end up getting there, and there was a major collapse at the end because they went from 375 for 6 to 384 all out. So obviously they lost 4 wickets in the space of 9 runs, which is a very England thing, dare I say, to do. So in that particular sense, I will say that they are, they would be kicking themselves a little bit, because again, I don't think this pitch has anything. It's not had any major demons so far. Yes, there was some early seaman swing movement with the second new ball, but that is always bound to be the case with the new ball. However, for Australia, they've taken advantage of the conditions, despite the fact that England got 2 wickets. Stokes, of course, being the person who's managed to get both, which is a positive, because again, with the bat, his net contribution has been 0. Out for 11 ball duck in this particular case, but done well with the ball. Been the bad bowler who's gotten both of their wickets. Of course, some of the bowlers have been expensive, and perhaps no one more so than a Matthew Potts. 8.3 economy. Is this a T20 or an ODI game? It certainly felt like that when he was bowling. Otherwise, a Bryden Cast going at 4.8 is decent. Josh Tongue 3.1. Stokes was going at 3.7. But again, for Australia right now, they're in a good position. Even England shouldn't be losing heart, but it could very well be a situation that they could be in for a long third day, and the moving day may very well move things in Australia's favor. Let's take a couple of comments before we call it quits. So you've got Shoiri Holla saying that anyway England will lose the test match, and yeah, it could very well be that. I wouldn't deny. In fact, to take the next question from Pibbly Journey, saying Aussies for one loading, very well possibility, because they do have a lot of batting, and I think that if they can take a first innings lead, then they will in fact get this 4-1 result. And Ben Fuller says that Root's average in Australia before this tour was 35. That's not atrocious, LOL. I agree. I'm not talking about his overall record. I do think people are harsh to him when it comes to judging him basis his Australia record, because it's not like he doesn't have decent numbers. It's just that him not being able to get that 100 and that whole conversion thing where he had 50s but could never make that into a big score is used as a stick to beat him with. And I think that's also an entirely fair sort of an assessment. Again, it's a middling sort of a thing. Yes, he's got decent numbers, overall runs, and by no means bad, but prior to this he didn't have 100, and for a batter of his standards, that is something that we can hold against him just a little bit. So let's see how it is that day 3 goes. Tomorrow should be an interesting one. Day 3 is usually normally the moving day in a test match, and I think by tomorrow we'll have a clearer indication as to where it is that it's going. But right now, I would say the hosts very slight favorite. So that's my assessment. You guys can let me know in the comments below if you agree, disagree, whatever. And don't forget, as always, to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon as well. Follow us on social media too. We're on Instagram, X, and Facebook. And stay tuned through the day for more such updates from the world of sport.